So, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, and this is giving me a lot of ideas on how to utilize AI when it comes to podcast production. So today, we're going to take a look at how to use AI to generate viral excerpts, like short clips from long-form content. If you're new here, hi, my name is Alex, and on this channel, we talk about anything and everything low-code, automation, AI, you freaking name it. We've probably done it or about to do it. So, without any further ado, let's get stuck in. So we're going to start things off as we usually do with a very quick demo. So the idea here is that we have some varying length podcast recordings. It doesn't really matter what they are, but the general vibe here is like it's motocross, motorsports, that sort of thing. And what we are trying to do is we're trying to generate viral shorts/reels from that selected clip. Like I said, we have 12, 33 minutes, and 1.2 hours. There's also another one that I've been experimenting with that is 3.5 hours long, but problem with that one is that typically with at least ChatGPT, we only have a 125K context window. So yeah, it's kind of hard to deal with that one. But ultimately, for anything like 2.5 hours long, you should be absolutely fine. So these examples should also be fine. So let's test one out. I mean, I've got a 33-minute one. What you really have to do at this point is just choose the length. So let's say I want like a 15-second short that really is like on the controversial theme. Like I want some controversial viral shorts. Click the button. It should start. There we go. Transcribing, working AI magic. And here we go. Let's take a quick look. So this is about 10 seconds long. Discusses Kenny's ability to train himself. Okay, all right. Segment highlights Kenny's struggle with Epstein-Barr. Controversializes the balance between training intensity and health. Yeah, fairly controversial. This one is about 14 seconds long. Okay, fine. Let's change things up. I'm gonna use this clip, the bottom one, the 33-minute one. Let's go for 45 seconds. That is insightful. Okay, so, and by the way, you can combine themes, like you can choose insightful and controversial, for instance, or insightful and energetic. So let's take a look at this. So we've chosen how much? 45 seconds. Captures the emotional journey. All right. Technical insights. Personal experience. Valuable. That's about 30 seconds. So it does cut them short if it thinks it should be short. Or okay, cool. Let's try inspirational. Okay. So, and this is the final test just for fun. Let's do that. Here we go. Again, it kind of focuses on this first thing, even though we've said 45 seconds, it's still bringing that out, but it's spinning it to be inspiring. Okay, fair play. This is about 36. No, that's about 30 seconds long. It's spinning those previous clips from them being insightful to being inspirational. Okay, that's basically it. Now, let's take a look at how the database is set up. Okay, so there's not much to talk about in terms of the database. It's all very clean. All you will really need to set this up, if that's what you're after, is just very basic table. You don't have to use Airtable. You could use a spreadsheet. You could use whatever. But bottom line is, actually, no, I don't think you can, because you still need to host the file somewhere. So you can't use a spreadsheet. Forget about that. Ultimately, Airtable is the name of the game here. So episodes, I just have a name. I have the podcast audio, varying lengths of audio. You could go pretty much unlimited. The only limitation is the context window of the AI model that we're using, which right now at this point in time is 128,000 tokens. So yeah, podcast audio goes in. We have our trigger checkbox. We have our viral short list text, which is something that you can just like give to your editor and say, look, punch in, punch out. This is the reason, go. Then we have our like settings, so to speak, for AI to kind of follow. And we have the viral shorts length, single select, 15, 30, 45 seconds. We have the themes. I was also kind of like, hey, you know, I've got all of these themes, but can I extract the sponsor message? because sometimes you want to be able to, I don't know, maybe see what sponsor message was featured where in retrospect. Maybe you weren't tracking what sponsor messages you were putting in your podcast, and now you're kind of thinking, well, I want to do this in retrospect, so this could actually work for that as well. And of course, the transcription ID text field, that's about it in terms of the database. Let's move on to automation, where all the fun is at. So, automation time. If you watched any of our videos, you know by now that we like to trigger things and start our automations in the same exact way every time because we're aiming for simplicity here. So, as I said previously, you need a trigger field, which in our case is generate viral shorts / reels. And as soon as you check it, the automation runs. In order to set up that trigger, you first have to open up make.com and here set up a webhook. Now, as soon as you set this up and you generate one of these URLs, just copy this address to clipboard, jump back into Airtable, go into automations, create a new automation if you haven't done so already. Make sure that the trigger is set up to being based on when a record matches conditions, and that condition being episodes, the table, and the condition is generate viral shorts is checked. When that is the condition, then we run our favorite script. Make sure that you copy this script exactly as is, but replace this URL with your URL that you get from make, the one that we've just copied. Now, also don't forget to add the input variables over here, just like I've done. Record _ ID, same capitalization, same everything. And then we have the value, which is just a mapped field from down here, the Airtable record ID field. Basically, once you're done, press finish editing, turn it on, don't forget to turn it on, and jump back into your data. That's it in terms of the trigger. Now, the fun really begins in make. And all we have here, which is not even that complicated, is just a quick little automation that if you haven't processed this clip before and you haven't generated a transcription, it will generate that transcription, fetch the SRT data. Using that SRT data, then get ChatGPT or any AI model that you've hooked up to make, process it, and just push that process data back into Airtable. That's the big idea. Now, I've also added some elements here, like these modules here. They don't really do much. So what they do, they essentially update the user to say that, hey, I'm transcribing, or hey, I'm doing my AI thing right now. It's like a nice to have. It's a convenience for the user to know that something is happening and the system is just not stuck. So let's go through this. I'm just going to auto line all of this, and we immediately jump into fetching that record, just mapping the record ID from module number 1 into get record. Then we have updating our user. Again, we're just fetching that record ID, and we're just saying, hey, transcribing, and just making a very fancy timestamp, essentially just the date and the second, the hour, minute, second, whatever thing. Yeah, so that's that. Once that's done, we are faced with like a little router that on each end basically says transcription ID does not exist. So if you haven't transcribed this file before, you'll need to take this route. And what we have here is that we initiate our transcription. I'm using Assembly AI, which is, I think, by far the best audio transcription API that I've found online, and I've looked at a bunch. This one seems to be the cheapest and the best all round. So yeah, highly recommended. And all we have to do here is just give it the audio URL, which I'm just mapping the podcast audio that I'm getting from module number 2. Then the next thing that you need to take care of is speech model. Just set it to best, nothing wrong with that. And then auto chapters, entity detection. And the final thing is to wait until transcript is ready. Make sure that that is yes. Next, we need to fetch the SRT data. There's an easier way to do this. There is a whole module over here for Assembly AI. I think it's the get subtitles for a transcript, retrieves the transcript as SRT so I should have used that, but I went the long way, took the scenic route to get to the same conclusion. Basically, I'm doing a make an API call. This is the endpoint. just make sure that you mapped the ID from the initial transcription that you've done. Method is get, the rest of it is just as is. Once you're done setting that up, we move on to the next module, which is, again, just an update to the user to say, hey, working AI magic, because we're just about to start the AI processing of that SRT file that we took from here. So now it's time to discuss the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, and that is the prompt that I've got set up here for ChatGPT API. I'm using GPT 4.0. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it seems to work a-okay. Now my system message goes something like this. You're an YT Shorts IG Reels producer who adheres strictly to the desired expert length. I had a lot of trouble getting it to adhere to the excerpt length. Anyway, so the user message goes something like this. I'm actually feeding it the podcast SRT text as a whole, so that's a lot of text. Then I'm giving it the desired excerpt length, max clip excerpt length, viral shorts length from module 17. Basically, it's that length that we set up in Airtable. Then we have our excerpt destination. This is hard-coded, but at the end of the day, you can make this dynamic just like we did with the length or the themes. Also, the reason why it's dynamic, it's because I actually had TikTok in there. And as soon as I removed TikTok, it actually started working. So the destination matters. I'm not thinking that a 45 second clip would be like for TikTok. TikTok is usually much shorter. So in this case, yeah, YouTube Shorts, IG Reels gets it to adhere to the length that I give it much better than if I had TikTok in here as well. That kind of seems to confuse the model. So required themes, I'm just mapping the whole array in there because this is just a string, but it's a simple array, so it will work just fine even if you have more than one theme, like we said earlier. While we have our desired formatting, excerpt number, punch in, punch out, start time, end time. Feel free to just copy all of this. And then we have our task. Again, I'm like basically telling it what to do in more concrete terms. I'm telling it also to ignore the opening of the podcast because it feels like the opening has got a lot of viral potential, which is true. Openings are explosive, but we want to ignore them. We want a real story from within. So yeah, and finally, last but not least, do not add any conversational language, do not add any pretext, and so forth. So max tokens is set to 0. Temperature is at 0.5. You can play around with it. I've tried it at 0.2, but 0.5 seems to work just okay. Top P, all of that is pretty much as they are. Finally, we've got the update episode where I'm just basically updating the episode with the content that I get from ChatGPT, and I'm pushing into the viral shorts list field. That's it. Also mapping the transcription ID and the transcript itself into a couple of fields, but yeah, mainly the transcription ID is what you care about in this particular case. Now, the second part of this is exactly the same as this part over here, this bit. These 4 modules are exactly the same as these 4. There's no point in going over this again. Ultimately, if the transcription ID exists, then instead of mapping it from module 75, we just map it from Airtable. Just map the transcription ID right in there in that request, and you should be golden from there. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This was a really fun one to make. Let me know down in the comments below if you want me to make more podcast-oriented automation content. I think it will be an interesting little thing to discuss. But yeah, nevertheless, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.